16 after the hour. Today's Doug Stephan Good Day program. Rich McFadden and I now have with us Brian Bouffard, who, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, former JAG officer, now a counsel defending service members in the armed forces. The question comes up on Bo Bergdahl as you look at there are a couple of different adjuncts to this story, Brian. The fact that the news media trying to find those 5 Taliban Gitmo detainees who were released in return for the sergeant. Apparently, intelligence officials have been following them. One of them is already back up to no good. And then there's a couple of others who are leaning in that direction, shall we say, going back to their old ways. There's a report in Congress this week suggesting 17% of those who are released in these circumstances go back to their old ways.
Attacking us.
Yeah, right, coming back and doing whatever they can. So, anyway, that's one aspect of this. The actual trial underway. Would you defend Bergdahl if you were asked to?
Absolutely, I would. And just to clarify, there is no trial underway on Sergeant Bergdahl. We haven't even gotten to the point where a decision has been made on what to charge him with.
What do you think?
Those reports that came out earlier this week, I believe, were incorrect.
Right, they were. I think somebody that's been mentioned a number of times.
Do you think he will be charged, and what would he be charged with?
Well, I do think he's going to be charged, and really, to me, the most interesting question here is whether or not the government decides to charge him with just unauthorized absence, which is simply not being where you're supposed to be because of your own actions.
You're AWOL.
And AWOL, exactly. The Army calls it AWOL. Some of the other services call it UA, or unauthorized absence. Or desertion. And desertion differs from UA only because the government would have to prove one additional element, and that is that when Sergeant Bergdahl, or then PFC Bergdahl, left, that at the moment he left, he had the intent to stay away permanently. And so there's evidence that seems to kind of cut in that direction. There may be some that cuts away from that. And that'll be an interesting question, and it also significantly raises the potential punishment level.
So when we look at some of the information from his father and his family, the tweets about we will not rest until all of the detainees are released from Gitmo, does that stand against him in any kind of a trial? Will that be brought up? And then he had some information that led in that direction too, right?
Well, that's what's been reported. I can tell you that the email and tweet ramblings of his dad or his family, those are very likely going to be inadmissible against Sergeant Bergdahl. However, obviously, Bergdahl's own statements could certainly be used against him.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, under the circumstances, this sort of thing hasn't happened a lot. Is there some sort of precedent, though, for this kind of a trial or any kind of charges being filed against him?
Well, we haven't tried and executed somebody for desertion in time of war since Private Slovak in 1945 in World War II. Now, I'm not saying that Sergeant Bergdahl is going to face the death penalty, but if they charge him with desertion, the death penalty would be legally possible. The convening authority, General Milley, could say, I want to refer this case to a general court-martial, and I want to refer it as a capital case. Now, I think the chances of that are extremely low, but it is legally possible if they charge him with desertion.
All right, so a good lawyer, it would seem to me, would dig around and come up with a defense that this is not a war. It's not a legally declared war. If I were in his shoes, or if somebody was representing him, I'd say, hey, this wasn't something Congress voted on. This is not a real war. He wasn't.
Well, the UCMJ doesn't define it necessarily as a formally declared war, and which also we haven't had since World War II.
Right.
But an armed conflict could certainly trigger those provisions.
Really?
Is there any information that he tried to desert and go and be with the enemy?
Well, unfortunately, for months and months, all any of us outside the Army have been able to do is speculate. So I'm going off of other media reports when I say I believe I recall some of that information, that he may have done that. I also seem to recall information that he had left before and come back. Right. And if that's the case, then that is at least some ammunition that might be, on the defense side to say, well, you can't automatically say he intended to desert because he said this before he came back.
So how does the White House stand up now, giving him up for 5 detainees? That's the hard part here.
Yeah, Brian, thank you for being here. Brian Bouffard, discussing the Bergdahl case. And his website, by the way, jagdefender.com, is pretty interesting stuff to read. 21 after on Good Day.